Hello, my name is Luke. I am a multi-musician, music producer, mix and engineer, artist in his own right. And I do all these things day to day and have done for many, many years now. And I like to share what I do behind the curtain, so to speak, on songs that I make that hopefully you enjoy and maybe you can learn something from. So let's dive in, because today I have the cover by Sophie Burrell called Birds of a Feather. You may know the song, originally by Billie Eilish. Sophie asked me to produce a version for her, and so I want to show you what I did, how I did it, and some of the things that went into making the track possible. So let's get in. Upon opening the project, this is what it looks like. I am pretty organized, as you can see. Red is drums, brown is bass, green is guitar, purple is synth, orange is effects, light blue is lead vocals, and then this dark blue are BVs and things like that. So I'll play a bit of the song.
I want you to stay till I'm in the grave, till I ride away, dead and buried, till I'm in the casket you carry. Go on going to, 'cause it was always you. If I'm turning blue, please don't save me. Nothing left to lose without my baby. Birds of a feather, we should stick together. I know I said I'd never think I wasn't better alone. Can change the weather, might not be forever, but it's forever. It's even better, 'cause I don't know what I'm crying for. I don't think I could love you more. Might not be long, but baby, I'll love you till the day that it's time. Till the day that it's time. Till the light leaves my eyes. Till the day that it's time. I want you to see.
Okay, that's all I'm going to play. And then she does a 6 solo at the end, and you should definitely listen to the full thing for sure. So let's break this down. Let's jump into the drums first and foremost. The drums is made up of 2 primary sections here. I'm just going to mute the drum bus here. And it's made up of this beginning section, which is kind of an electronic kit, which sounds on its own like this. And this, I actually kind of copied the original drums from Birds of a Feather, because I wanted to kind of introduce something familiar to the listener when they heard the song. So obviously it's her own version, and that's what we end up doing, but I just still wanted to have something original in there. So the main melody, of course, the do, 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 that bit, and also these drums here. So we have a kick stack here, and this is made up of 2 kicks. We have this thud, and then we have this kind of click. And together they sound pretty nice. And of course I process that bus here, so rather than processing one at a time individually, I process the bus down here, so I'm affecting both of them like they are one kit, or kick I should say, sorry. The other main parts of this is this snare, and it's made up of 2. It's a very deep snare, and this is a slightly more dead sounding snare, a little more realism to it. It's got a bit more high energy to it, but it's not like a super high energy snare, so we kept it like that. We have this tom, which kind of sounds a bit like a kick, really. I mean, if you didn't know it was a tom, like an 808 tom specifically, you would probably assume it was a kick. So that's in there. And the other main thing that we have is this tambourine doing 16ths. And that's pretty cool. And let's see if I can show you this. Yes, if I press the H button, you'll see all the tracks that I've hidden. So we are actually 188 tracks strong. I tend to bounce out all my tracks in place and then press H to hide the ones that I'm not using, or like the MIDI tracks, I no longer need them. So when I press H, I can just open it back up. It's a way for me to commit to the sound, but I know I still have the original file there if I ever want to go back. So I'll show you what I did here. So this is the original 16th kind of pattern here. And I just used an instance of RC20 just to give it a little bit of that bite, that kind of sort of retro sound. And you can see I've got the digital all the way up. And if I just turn this off. And then I remember listening to the original and going, oh, it sounds kind of lo-fi in a way. And so I added some distortion, some RC20, bit of this digital bit crushing effect. And we get that, and it sounds great. So very happy with that. So that's predominantly the first part of the drums. As we move on, we then get into our second kind of drum sound, which are the live drums here. So they sound great. They are not real drums. They are not live. They are actually MIDI drums. I'm using Get Good drums, the Architect's kit. And if I press the H button here and we can uncover what's underneath, you can see here, I've got contact loaded here. And I set it up as a multi-out. It's not that obvious in that view there, but basically I'm routing all of these to their own output. So the kick comes into this channel, the snare comes into this channel, and I was able to add a few extra bits and pieces to the sounds. Like for example, on the snare here, it looks like I added a bit of triggering to it. So if I just open this up, so although the plugin itself is great and has really great snare sounds, I decided that I wanted to add some extra sauce to it. Yeah, so there we go. You can see I've added just another couple of samples here. Again, just to beef out that snare. Of course, I then bounced everything out to audio, and that's where you get all of this here. And yeah, I mean, they sound great. They sound really real. I used to be a drummer myself, so when I program drums, I very much try and think like a drummer. I've got a little bit of processing on the bus of the live drums here. So we've got this DBX 160, which is a super heavy impacting compressor, gives it loads of transient energy. And then to tame the transients, we have this clipping plugin here. And then we have the main drum bus here, which has a variety of things such as compression, EQ, transients. I really love doing this on drum buses. Add a little bit of bit crushing. Just subtle. This one I'm using is called Byte. It's from Native Instruments. I'm using the preset called Bodybuilder, and it just adds so much more to it. Again, some standard clip. I've got a bit of a hi-fi compressor here, so I just wanted to compress some of the high-end stuff because it's quite what's the word, sparkly sounding drum kit, and there's lots of high-end energy, so I just want to keep some of that in check. And then a final gloss of fresh air. So after taming some of the harsher high frequencies, I then add some generic highs to it, which gives it so much energy and just lovely stuff. And that basically goes all the way through. These drums just carry on all the way through. There's nothing spectacular that they do. We move over to a crash here. This is in the riff. You know, the main thing with all of these was to add a ton of high energy. I will show you the processing on this kick actually. But you see I've had to freeze a lot of these tracks. So I will show you some of the processing. So we've got some compression, we've got some EQ, 2 lots of EQ, some saturation, and then trimming. We've got some additional saturation, we've got some more EQ. We've then got this Neutron 3, which gives us a little bit more. What's this one? This is Sculptor. So this is carving out and just shaping the tone of the sound a little bit more. And then after that, I added a bit more bit crushing, because why not? I then tried this drum strip from SSL, the native drum strip, and what did I use? Low frequency enhancer, high frequency, and the mic compressor. And then I added a final coat of thermal, the kick saboteur or saboteur. And this is being blended in, about 45% there. And I mean, you could argue that technically it's all over the place, but I think the main thing is that you just work with it till it sounds good, right? And that could be right at the source sound. That could be after adding all these different plugins doing different things. To me, I just wanted to squeeze more out of the kick. And every time I added something, I went, I feel like it could just do with a bit more. And I always made sure I did this in context of the mix and of the whole song. And so that was my main thing, was just to use the plugins I had to create the sound that I desired. And that was my number one focus, certainly with the drums. Moving swiftly into the bass, we have a Reese bass, which starts off the song, which sounds like this. And this has been sidechained to the kick up at the top here. And again, it's just a slightly different vibe. I wanted to keep that Reese bass effect throughout the verses. And I think I really enjoy how that sounds. There's nothing too crazy going on with that. There's a bit of distortion, giving it that top end sizzle, as you can hear. But in context.
Till I'm in the grave.
It kind of just feels a little bit of that space, that frequency space, which might not be occupied by other things currently. Moving on to our chorus, and this is where it all kind of kicks in here. So I'll show you how this is all sounding just soloed. So that we've got that, and then we have this kind of additional bass being added when the riff comes in. So that's what they are doing. These are the sounds that are present. Basically, the bass is a plugin, the live bass. It's the Rickenbacker plugin from Native Instruments. And I just recorded that in and then cut off the low end and replaced the low end with this sine wave here. You'll need really good speakers or headphones to hear that. But essentially, that is covering the bottom end here. You get rid of the bottom of the live bass, add that electronic sine, and then you get a really consistent low end. And it's just really nice to work with. So they're the two main components. And then over here, in this section here, this is like a gnarly synth bass. I think it's from Evolve. Which, if I just open up the plugin here, so it's the Sinful Clicker Bass by Heaviosity, and I really enjoy using this in harder rock metal mixes. It just sounds great to me. So really, really enjoy that. The only other big main thing that I'm adding to all these bass sounds here is the track spacing plugin here, and this is just side chaining to the kick. So every time the kick hits, this ducks those frequencies, so we're not getting any muddiness. Moving over to the guitar bus, I have something to admit to you. Most of the guitars aren't played by Sophie. They're actually played by me. The part that is Sophie is the solo right at the end, which I think is down here. So she recorded this. I love the way Sophie records her guitars. I think it sounds awesome. She's got amazing tones. For the sake of time, I just create the sounds I record in the guitars because it just makes the whole process a lot quicker. And so that's what we've got here. So the main guitar we have coming in at the beginning is this guitar here. A slightly cleaner guitar with some kind of bit crushing distortion to it. It's supposed to be slightly spacey, kind of wide, nothing too intrusive here. As we move on, we then get into the main chorus, which is labeled by this track stack here. And these are just single notes being played on the guitar. So you have this one initially. This one just plays all the way through. It's just an octave. We have this one. And this is like a really kind of gnarly centered guitar. It just has a slightly different distortion tone to the other two, which I'll show you now. We have this one. And the same on the right side. Slightly different tones, slightly different amp settings, but generally they're just, I'm playing around with different kinds of distortion sounds to create different sounds and tones to see how it all feels. And in fact, this centered guitar here, these are actually MIDI guitars. So the more you know. On the bus of, or on the track stack of all these guitars here, I'm just doing some minimal, some slight processing. We just have some EQ compression, and then MOTT. This is like an OTT plugin. It's Slate Digital's version. And again, we've just got about 35% of that to give it that really saucy, almost synth-like sound right up in your face. Moving on to the riff part, so this section. This sounds even bigger than the chorus, and I'll show you what's going on here. We'll start with our two guitars, which are these. So the way that I've done these is I think I've essentially just processed them heavier. So I'm using the same effect as the chorus guitars, but I'm just going heavier with the bit crushing and with the distortion. That's all that part is. It's got a bit more bite to it. It's more aggressive, and yeah, I think it sounds really, really fun. I then also add in the scratches separately. Again, just kept the whole thing a bit cleaner, like that. Allow me to just process them independently. The thing that I think is giving the sound to this riff stack is this synth here that I conjured up. Some time ago I was working on a song and there was a synth brass sort of sample that I was using. And there was a moment in that sample that just sounded incredible with the guitar part I was playing. So I decided to chop that bit out, put it onto a synth, and then play it like a keyboard, and that's what ended up here. That's what this sound is. And I just saved it, and basically whenever I record guitars, I use this sound and double up the guitars with this. And obviously I then affect this with different distortions and EQs based on what I'm after, but it sounds a bit crazy on its own, a bit whack, but when you then add it in with everything, it just adds some of that additional crunchy, those additional crunchy harmonics that you can get from a synth. There's also a fifth in there, which I think also helps make the sound much bigger and nicer. So when you compile that kind of riff stack with then the additional bass I showed you before, this funny sounding Sinful clicker, that's where you're getting this really crazy big sound. I'm also going deeper with the guitar, and actually, funny story, I didn't have a down-tuned guitar at this point. I just had a Fender Strat, so I had to make do with what I had. I literally recorded in the guitar and then I would pitch it down, which is why you're actually seeing, for example here, -3 semi, because it's -3 semitones, because that's what I put a pitching plugin on the guitar amp, so I was able to play lower without actually a detuned guitar. So I don't think anyone noticed. Moving on to the synths, we've got 4 different tracks here. So the first one is this. And this is just the main riff. That sound is, I'm not sure what that sound is actually. So this is Scarbo. So this is by a company called Teletone, and they are awesome. The preset's called Cocoon, and it sounds awesome. Moving on to the chorus, we have this one here. And this is just acting as a bit of an impact, I think. Yeah, it's barely audible. It's just acting as a bit of an impact. I think I threw it in there for whatever reason at the time, and it never actually amounted to being super audible, but I kept it in there because I thought I like the way things sound, and everything all stacks and adds up. So I just left it. You can see that on this same synth track that was super vibey before is now very loud in the waveform. So it's the main riff. We don't have any of the spaciness to it like we do over here. So no spaciness. We got rid of that. And this is what the raw synth sounds like. And the same thing happens over here. It's underground, it's vibey, and then it builds up. And these are just automation curves. We then have this synth section here. So this is taking the original riff and it's just slightly changing it to better suit what we're doing. And this is where the main riff hits. Because we now have the guitar doing the dun, 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 I didn't want the synth to also mimic that. I wanted some kind of stability and something straight to contrast everything. And that's why the synth is now doing dun, 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 dun. You're just getting that syncopation going. So it sounds really cool, really fun. That also happens later on in the main riff here as well. With the effects, these are just samples that I dragged in with some minimal EQ and compression just to get them to fit a little bit better. We've got some explosions or distant explosions. Stuff like this. We've got this kind of like this sub drop here. Like that. We've got some little whooshes. In this case, that is actually just like an impact, and then some additional noise on top of that as well. Like that. And then we have this kind of long sweep which plays towards the end of, it looks like the chorus here. Yeah. Who doesn't like a good sweep? And then we just have the same thing over here as well, just another little sweep. This one actually has some tonal energy to it. And then we're into the chorus. We also have some additional impacts, which are down here, and that sound like this. So again, a couple of different impacts layered, just to give me that sweet, sweet sound. And then just a short sweep. Which, of course, yeah, leads into that. There's not much to say about that section. These are just samples you drop in, you add them, and get them to fit your song how you see fit. Moving on to the main event, Sophie's vocals. She tracked these at her place and then sent them across to me. We have worked in person before, and we always she's awesome. She's a really focused singer, and she really takes to being told where to go and what to sing. And when doing that the first time, it was a bit of a learning curve, but she absolutely took it in her stride. And now she's able to go away and just record all her own bits and pieces just by herself, and they sound sick. So yeah, she's done a great job there. And so, as with all my vocals, I break it down into multiple stages here. So I always apply a first pass of EQ, compression, tuning, and that's exactly what I did here. So I press the H button, it opens up all my hidden tracks, and you can see that on this main, we're going to ignore this top one here because this is irrelevant. If we look at our main vocal here, you can see over here we've got Melodyne and Autotune. So again, Melodyne is for correction and making the finer edits. Then a general pass of Autotune, not too heavy, because we didn't want it to sound robotic or super poppy like that. We then have some EQ, compression, NS1, which is like a noise suppressor. So that gets rid of any background noise. So that got rid of any of the room noise that she had. And then some additional compression and EQ. So again, there's nothing magical about that. It's literally just we're taming the vocal, trying to get it to a place that when I bounce it out, it looks like this waveform here, which is then what I was left with. And on this one, this is where I added a little more source. If I just unfreeze the track, I can show you what's going on. So here we've got some parallel compression. We've got some more EQ to tame that, and then some saturation here. We've got a de-esser at this point as well, just to tame those S's. And then we have a final sort of compressor here, which is the UAD LA2A. And the LA2A is, I mean, if you don't know this compressor, this is one of the best for vocals. It's very transparent, but can make your vocals sound upfront and wonderful. So fully recommend that. I did that for all her vocals. You see, we've got a verse, we've got a chorus, and we've got a post-chorus here. Just to satisfy your curiosity, this is how she sounds a cappella.
Till I ride away, dead and buried. Till I'm in the casket you carry. If you go, I'm going too.
Good stuff. There is some final bit of source on top of the main kind of track stack of the vocals here. We're just running it through this kind of a desk emulator here. Some additional EQ because I wanted to get a bit more brightness in it. And then some additional compression, just a bit of a glue there. And then finally, some thermal. So this is a saturation plugin. Just a bit of a soft edge here, just to add a little bit of harmonic information and energy. So that's where you're getting that kind of slightly distorted sounds. It sounds quite distorted and saturated on its own.
Till I'm in the casket
you know, when we go over to the chorus, sounds the same.
Of a feather, we should stick together, I know.
But in context of the whole mix, this is where it sounds good. So again, I like to try and do things in context of the mix because that's where it matters most. Sophie is also a huge fan of harmonies, and so we have the BV bus here, which is the bus is basically another name for like the track stacks, because I'm busing them all to one track here. If I just solo this and play the chorus.
Birds of a feather, we should stick together, I know. I said I never think I wasn't better alone.
Okay. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what? That sounds crazy. Like, that doesn't sound good at all. It sounds distorted and it sounds chopped up. Yeah, it does. Because again, going back to the distortion thing, in context, the additional distortion sounds really, really good, and it just ties everything in together, makes them blend. I will say,
Of a feather, we should stick together, I know. I said I never think I wasn't better alone.
the reason why it sounds a little bit chopped here is if I press the A button and open up the automation, you can see I've got a gain plugin here. And on words like her S's,
we should stick together, I know. I said I never think I wasn't better.
right, where I felt like it was poking out too much, I just ducked it, the actual gain a bit here. Because you see, I did try and use a plugin to do it for me, but it just didn't sound right. It didn't sound good. So I went in manually and I just turned the gain down. And so that's what I ended up with. A slightly chopped vocal on its own, but actually when you put it all in context, the lead vocal takes care of the S. So that's what we allowed. And she loves harmonies. She's great at singing these harmonies. It sounds great. There's some additional ad-libs as well, which go on here. I'm just using some CLA vocals, which is a Waves plugin. Again, just to give it that space. I think I was on a bit of a tight timeline and it sounded good, so I didn't need to do anything extra. Like that. And that's been bussed to this plate reverb as well. So you can see my bus channel here. I'm just sending that to a plate reverb. And in fact, I'll just quickly go over the buses for the lead vocals here as well. I realized I didn't go over them. We've got the smooth infinity verb. This is what I call my reverb here. So I'm running this bus. I'm bussing it to this one here, the infinity effect here, preset. This sounds awesome. It's an alternative to Valhalla, which I really, really like. We're running it to a bit of non-linear verb, which I actually ended up changing to this tape delay. This is to give a bit of extra width and give a bit of room. And then we've got the tiniest bit of kind of a quarter note delay here with this bus here. If I click on that, you can see that's what this plugin is here. And so they're all the effects, they're all the things that are being done to make the sound what it is. Let's quickly go over to Sophie's solo. It's insane. When she sent it to me, again, because she gets such a good tone, all I needed to do was add some EQ, compression, and saturation. Honestly, pro level tip, they're the 3 pillars of any and all mixing. So just compression, saturation, EQ, you're laughing. And there's some additional EQ here because she wanted it to kind of fade out at the end here. So you'll see that, yeah, I basically take the mix knob here and I just automate it like that. And then finally, let's go over what's on the master chain, because I master in the project. Yes, I know, I am that guy, but it's all right. It sounded good. So there's quite a lot going on here. The master is really doing a lot of heavy lifting. So we've got a compressor. This is just to tie it all together. This is an EQ, the Violet EQ. This was giving some high-end energy. So again, I do a lot of top-down mixing. So what that means is I probably applied this master chain pretty early on because I wanted to get closer to the sound quicker than doing it individually with individual tracks. So we had the Violet EQ. We then have the hi-fi compressor to tame the unwanted high frequencies that we added. A bit of a vintage drive. I quite like the way this sounded. It's only a little bit. Some additional thermal. So this one's push the mix. This is just giving saturation and color to it. We then introduce the standard clip. We then have Ozone 9. Very specifically this part here, the equalizer and the dynamic EQ. I basically used the Master Assistant here and got it to sculpt a preset for me. We then have the Oxford Inflator, secret cheat code to get a really consistent level sound. It kind of expands the sound. I don't know how, it just does. FGX2, this was my mastering plugin of choice from Slate with the punchy mode, and then just increasing the gain up until it was hitting. Getting to around -4 there. And then the final plugin is just this tonal balance, so I could check how it all sounded. You know, to me, that sits in a really nice place, you know. And so that's what the master bus is doing. If I just turn off all, I'll keep the limiting on, but I'll just turn off what all the plugins are doing prior to the limiter. Listen to how this sounds. And back on. See how it just like brightens it, it just makes it more punchy, and yeah, I think it sounds great. Anyway, I realize this has been a really, really long video. If you want me to break down anything in more detail, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, that is the song. That is a look into the project and how it was done and made. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.